So multitasking is an illusion.
You don't exist. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
All you're doing is you're switching very, very quickly from one activity to the next.
But in any given moment, there's not two things.
No.
Got it.
No. So you can be an automatic pilot and doing something outside of your awareness physically. You can
Okay.
be walking and listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
But in terms of what you're consciously, cognitively holding in mind, one at a time. People tend to be engaging in mind wandering 46.9% of the time.
So half.
Yeah, when you think about it,
Yeah.
nearly half the time our mind is pulling us out of the present moment.
Yeah.
It's taking us and drawing us towards what happened in the past, or it's projecting into what may unfold in the future. So we don't look at a tree that's growing and saying, you're like 60% of a tree. You don't reach your potential yet, so you're just not there. I'm not going to appreciate you. We do that with people though. If we sacrifice a pleasant moment for an imagined future, we're on very shaky ground.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Rich in Success podcast, the show that brings you motivation, education, and inspiration on how you can live a happier, healthier, more successful, and a more fulfilling life. This week's episode is with Dr. Arya. Dr. Arya is a high-performance psychologist and a mindfulness specialist. And I have to tell you right now that I know I hype a lot and I know I get excited a lot on this show, but this is undoubtedly not only mine, but my videographer Jimmy's favourite episode of all time. It felt like when we sat down with Dr. Arya, we literally were mesmerised and we'd kind of like stepped into an alternate universe where life seemed to slow down and we felt more present and in the moment than we've ever felt before. Dr. Arya not only has such an incredible presence and aura around him, but his ability to articulate something that we all need to understand more of was absolutely incredible. The power of the mind. That is what we ultimately dive into in this episode. And I, for one, believe that when you start to unleash, unlock, and understand the true potential and the true power of your mindset, you will start to achieve more in every single area of your life. I cannot stress enough how powerful I believe this episode will be. So my advice this week would be, give this episode the credit that it deserves. Sit down and give it the focus to really impact what you do after you listen to this episode. I don't want to say any more other than please enjoy. Do let us know your feedback once you've listened. This is episode 159. Discover the power of your mind with Dr. Arya. And just before we dive straight into today's Rich in Success podcast episode, I wanted to share with you what becoming a Rich in Success member could actually do for your life. Now, if you're somebody that is at a point where you're serious about positive change, whether that be in your health, your well-being, your mindset, your business, your career, your finances, or your relationships, the Rich in Success membership is perfect for you. For just £39 a month, you get access to over 40 training videos where I'll be taking you through everything from goal setting. We'll be looking at high performance habits. We'll be looking at different changes you can make to your mindset and your attitude that are going to be able to propel you to have more success in every single area of your life. And in addition to these training videos, every month, you will get a live group coaching call with me where you can ask me any questions about the content or about things that you're going through in your life so that I can help you personally as your coach. And as well as that, there will be exclusive bonus interviews with experts in a variety of fields. I'm bringing together the best minds, the best experts from all around the world to give you access to the very best content to help you move forward in your life. All this for just £39 a month, reoccurring subscription that you can cancel at any time. To become a Rich in Success member today, please click the link below or head on over to richinsuccess.com where you can sign up there, and I will look forward to seeing you in the exclusive members area very soon.
Okay, well, Dr. Arya, thank you so much for not only giving us your time, but inviting us into your home. I appreciate that.
It's my pleasure.
I guess a place I want to start is, obviously people define success very differently. And that is something that this podcast is all around, is trying to figure out what that is. But in general, I think we look at success in society as being external wins, you know, fulfilling a goal, achieving something we set out to achieve. And we know, like, it's obviously January now, New Year's resolutions. Statistics are that the majority of people that set New Year's resolutions, they don't achieve them. Why would you say is the biggest reason people don't achieve what they set out to, and actually what they want to achieve?
Whenever people are thinking about what it is that they want, often there's this strong focus on the outcome.
Yes.
And so, like you're saying, we're driven by the extrinsic and the external. So we're thinking about, what can I achieve? What does that look like? And it could be related to our career. It could be related to a relationship. It could be related to finance or wealth. And there's a really strong focus on the outcome.
Yeah.
And there's a danger with that. Whenever we focus heavily on the outcome, there becomes an added layer of pressure and anxiety and fear that creeps in. If we feel like we're moving closer towards the goal, we might feel elated and motivated. But if we feel like we're moving away from our goal, for instance, you step on the scales and it's not going the direction that you want, we feel demoralized and demotivated. And so the more pressure that we add, it actually takes us out of the present moment. And there's a quote by Chung Tzu, which goes along the lines of, when the archer shoots for nothing, he has all his skill. But if he shoots for a brass buckle, he loses his ability. Whenever he shoots for gold, he sees double. Now, his skill hasn't changed, but the need to win drains him of power.
Got you.
And so the more that we put that focus on the external, in a way, the more it robs us of our power, rather than focusing on the journey, on the process, rather than looking at what do I want to achieve, beginning to ask, who do I want to be? In what way could I grow or evolve or develop as a person towards that goal?
And that's where people talk about find joy in the journey, you know, focus on the present and being better in the moment. So it's looking at your daily behaviors.
Yeah.
And I guess it's that act as if, isn't it? It's being like the version of yourself. Like, what would the person that I want to become, the person who's achieved that external things, how would they conduct themselves? How would they be thinking? What would they be working on? What kind of level of effort do I apply in this moment, rather than what do I achieve? And I guess that brings me perfectly onto a theme I've been thinking about a lot, is that we're living in a world now where there's so many things draining our attention.
Yeah.
You know, WhatsApp's pinging off every 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And it feels like in order to be successful, we've got to get better and better at doing 100 things at the same time. However, we also know that when we can strip it back to basics and be more present in the moment, we generally find higher levels of confidence, happiness, fulfillment. My question is, what do you think is, if I'm now in a position where I'm like, right, I'm still wanting to achieve the external stuff, but I want to learn to get better at being present in the moment. Have you got kind of a few steps, skills, tips that I should be working on?
I think there are multiple elements to it. So like you're saying, Matt, it's recognizing that the mind is built in such a way that you will wander to thoughts which are different to what you're doing. And we know that from cognitive science. We know that from the research. In psychology, they call it stimulus independent thought. You'll be engaged in one activity, but your mind will be thinking about something else. And there was a groundbreaking study by Harvard showing that on average in everyday activities, people tend to be engaging in mind wandering 46.9% of the time.
So half.
Yeah, when you think about it,
Yeah.
nearly half the time our mind is pulling us out of the present moment.
Yeah.
It's taking us and drawing us towards what happened in the past, or it's projecting into what may unfold in the future.
Is that kind of because it's the thing of it's trying to look out for us, rather than just allowing us to be in the moment? It's kind of go, but have you remembered this that happened and
Completely.
this could happen? Is that kind of what's going on there?
Completely. It's actually a remarkable evolutionary feat, which has allowed humans to be able to plan, reason, prepare. Like you're saying, it's a way to safeguard our safety.
Yeah.
But it comes, we know, at an emotional cost. And it's not just the cost of your partner picking up on zoning out on date night. We know from the data that whenever our mind wanders, we're actually less happy.
Yeah.
Even when we're engaged in activities that we don't find particularly pleasant. And so it goes back to
Interesting.
your point. Yeah, so even when we look at commuting or doing something or a task that we're not that fulfilled by, we're happier when we're fully present and engaged than when we're mind wandering.
Wow.
And part of it is because our mind will often wander to negative aspects, or it'll catastrophize, and we can come on to why that is. But it's also beginning to look at what you were saying, which is right now we're living in an attention economy. And again, we can explore that, but essentially where we place our attention is crucial. And there's so many different pools on our attention that we've in a way fostered this belief that we need to be able to do multiple activities at a time, 1,000 things at a one time.
Because if that's what you see everybody else is doing, if that's what the cultural norm is, you start to go, I need to get better. And then you start to feel deflated that you're not better.
Absolutely.
And it's like a cycle, right?
Totally. When you look at the psychology, though, we know that we can only actually cognitively think about one thing at a time. So multitasking is an illusion.
You don't exist. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
All you're doing is you're switching very, very quickly from one activity to the next.
But in any given moment, there's not two things.
No.
Got it.
No. So you can be an automatic pilot and doing something outside of your awareness physically. You could be walking and listening to a podcast. But in terms of what you're consciously, cognitively holding in mind, one at a time. So every time that we're multitasking or switching from task to task, it comes at a cost because there's a lag time between adapting from one area or one topic to another. And the data shows we lose up to 40% productivity. It takes us on average 23 minutes before we reach that level of engagement every time we switch.
So it's kind of counterproductive trying to force yourself to multitask, trying to be able to develop a skill really doesn't exist. It just makes you less productive.
Absolutely. We know that when you're attempting to multitask, when you have multiple distractions, not only will you lose time switching from one task to another, we know there's a higher error rate, so you're going to make more mistakes.
Yeah.
And we also know that it's going to affect your ability to remember or to encode that in your memory. So you're going to be less present, make more mistakes, and be more forgetful, which isn't ideal.
Not very good, is it? So, okay, so I'm thinking about this now. I run 5 different companies. I've got a lot going on, and I'm thinking, oh, shit. So for anybody else like me that's listed, that's like, right, but I've still got a lot to do in a day, what would be kind of a good place to come from in terms of still getting the most out of, your hours in a day?
I think you can take the internal approach and the external. So the internal, from a psychological perspective, is to begin to notice where your attention is. It's developing this skill or capacity of awareness.
How do you do that?
You achieve awareness through awareness. Essentially, it's just beginning to notice when it's a little bit like noticing whenever it's raining. You begin to look for it. It's like really considering who finds more pearls, a pearl diver or a bus driver. It's not a trick question. It's going to be a pearl driver. So we want to begin to listen for our internal voice.
So it starts with a conscious decision. And then I guess, is it like the reticular activation system where it's like now you've started to look for it, you're going to see more of it, right?
Completely. So you want to begin to notice your voice.
Yeah.
Most people are so fused with their voice that they never recognize it.
Yeah.
Their mind will say one thing and they'll act implicitly instantaneously from it.
Mm.
Whereas freedom, high performance, greater liberation, to have more conscious control comes from recognizing what your mind is saying, what your ego is saying, what your psyche is saying, and creating separation between that. So the first part is to notice every time that your mind begins to drift off. Ah, I'm thinking about something else. Okay, I'm speaking to my partner and I'm thinking about what I need to do at work tomorrow. Okay, I'm in a meeting and I'm thinking about what I'll do at the weekend. And just begin to bring it back. It's like doing a bicep curl. Every time you bring it back, you're strengthening that muscle.
Got it.
And then the external approach would be, how can I safeguard and protect my time where there are less distractions? And like you're saying, technology is a huge one. It presents multiple phenomenal opportunity, but it also creates multiple opportunities for distraction. And we live in an attention economy. Economies are our most valuable asset.
Yeah.
Every global company, social media, the business model is attention. Eyeballs, clicks, that all leads to their source of finance. And so, you know, everyone knows these algorithms are based on creating the most attractive, consuming, engaging content as quickly as possible. So I would say structure your environment or create a system that makes it easier for you. So now what I do is I leave my phone in another room.
Yeah.
Rather than, because we even know that if a phone is on the table, it's going to be consuming some of your cognitive real estate. Just because your mind is thinking, is it going to ring? Is it going to buzz? It'll
And you
see a
can
light
see
flash.
it's a physical trigger, I guess, isn't it? It's that
Completely.
thing of you see it, and then that makes you think, oh, I might just check it, or have
Yeah.
I missed a call? Whereas if you didn't see it, you might not even think about it.
And you see this in companies implementing it. So one of my clients, their company has essentially a cube on the desk. And whenever you tap it and it's red, it means I'm engaged in a task. Please don't interrupt me. When it's green, feel free to come over. Hewlett Packard have done it with white flags on their desk. You can find different ways in your business life or your personal life just to create that time that it's safeguarded, that it's for you, that you remove the distractions and make it easier for you to have a single focus, because it's focus which leads to fulfilling relationships. It's focus which leads to long-term success. It's focus which leads you to grow and evolve and adapt along the way.
I'm interested then with that. How do you find that? Because obviously you're an expert in this field. What I find often is when you first bring awareness to a quote unquote issue or a problem, it gets worse before it gets better, because now you're like, oh, my attention is all over the place.
Yeah.
So initially it can become quite a disheartening process
Yeah.
sometimes. But then also when you're working with this with clients all the time, the expectation is for you to be brilliant at it sometimes, right? It's
Yeah.
like, well, you're the expert, so you must be present. Do you find it still something you struggle with from time to time, and you have to bring it back? And do you know like the catalyst, the triggers that start it?
It's a brilliant point you make, that whenever you grow in awareness, initially it's difficult. It actually is harder. The more that you're aware, the more you see when your mind is tripping you up, when it's pulling you into destructive emotional cycles, when actually you're being passive aggressive and attacking your partner because you're hurt.
Yeah.
Whenever you are coming from a place of fear and not putting yourself forward for the presentation or the pitch, or you're taking a step back when you feel like you should be stepping into the light, all of this becomes so much more cognizant, becomes so much more clear to you. And the mind then kicks off, because the mind is going to come from a place of judgment and fear and doubt, and will even blame you for it. Oh my goodness, you're really not good enough, or look how inadequate you are, or how can you not be better at this? You're in your 30s and you're still susceptible to what other people are thinking. It'll
So
come in hard with
makes
judgment.
It worse, right? It just adds to it initially.
Absolutely. And the more you become aware of the mind, the more that you see that the mind can be your best friend, but it can be your worst enemy. It can be what propels you, and it can be what holds you back. And a lot of the time, most people, particularly ambitious, high trajectory, high performing individuals, have a very critical mind.
Yeah.
Their mind has hugely high and perfectionistic standards, and it comes down on them hard. And so a piece within this is the self-compassion piece, is understanding. When you understand the nature of the mind, is understanding your mind is not who you are. You're not trying to have these thoughts. You're not thinking, I'm going to bring myself down or say I'm not worthy or I'm an idiot or I'm inadequate, or stepping on scales and say I'm fat, I'm lazy, I'm disgusting. You're not trying to create those thoughts. It comes up with them on their own accord.
Yeah.
You're not trying to feel demoralized or ashamed or sad. These just arise in your consciousness. And the whole part of this journey is continually separating from what your mind says and what you feel, noticing how you feel without attaching to it. And so I'm very fortunate that I've gone through the whole journey, and I'm still on the journey, but it used to be so much more difficult, so much more painful, because I was much more attached to my mind. Now I have areas that I want to work on, but I don't judge myself for it.
Got it.
I'm a continual work on process. All I'm wondering is what am I working on next? It's not a case of there being a finished article that will be in some sort of Zen-like state that is unaffected by anything. No, we're human beings, so we'll have human experiences and human emotions. The key, though, is being able to experience that, but still access a place of calmness and ease and clarity. And I'm very fortunate that after 15 years, I live in that space a lot more. But am I susceptible to the same demands and pulls? Absolutely. Particularly the one with technology. What I'm really working on right now is how can I safeguard my time to focus on what's most meaningful to me and not get pulled out of it without my conscious awareness.
So I guess it's kind of like, what I take from that is it's like the more you don't judge it and you accept it and you have that broader viewpoint that it's not going to be perfect and that's okay, the more that you will get it right. Because the thing that's holding us back is getting, for example, frustrated that I knew I shouldn't have reacted like that, but I am. And I knew I shouldn't feel like this, but I still am. And then we're doubly mad kind of thing. And it's that kind of just actually, no, there'll be times where it's not perfect. And it's that expectation, right? I think we know that we only get dissatisfied or disappointed when our expectation doesn't match what actually happens, right?
Completely.
So it's that if you can just go, hang on, let's look at my expectation. It's not going to be perfect. I'm never going to be, like you said, that kind of finished article that's perfect Zen-like. However, what I'm going to say is I feel like I'm opposite of Buddha right now. I don't know how you feel right now. I've never felt so Zen talking to you. So I can confirm for the listeners and the viewers, it's working. What you're doing, like you seem so present and like content within yourself. Like we know, obviously I'm sure you're not perfect and it's not always perfect, but you can tell that this is exactly what's working. Like the more you're aware, the less you judge, the more you get it more right than you get it wrong, right?
I think you're spot on, Matt. Something which you said there, which is so profound, and it's a principle which I live by, is that all suffering arises when our expectation of reality clashes with reality.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it ties into what you were saying in a way about judging our emotional experience. And the Buddhists would call it, well, there's a parable of the two arrows. Essentially in life, we're all going to face unwanted, unexpected events. You know, we talked about it before the camera was rolling. We'll be losing the person that we love, or we'll be single and we want to be in a relationship, or we could be struggling to conceive, or our children become sick, or we are not in the place or doing the work that we'd like to be doing, or we're there, but there's a huge amount of stress and there's professional challenges which come on board, or there's factors which suddenly throw us from lockdowns to pandemics to financial insecurity to markets crashing.
To our Christmas, right? We discovered we both expected Christmas to be a normal Christmas.
Absolutely.
And we both got COVID a few days before.
Absolutely. So life will throw you these curveballs.
Yeah.
Life will throw you these painful events. That's the first arrow. We can't stop the first arrow from landing. It will happen. And the way that we're built, we will have an instant emotional feeling about it. There will be hurt that will arise. There'll be sadness. There'll be regret. There'll be shame. And that will kick in automatically. There's a second arrow that most people fire, though. And the second arrow essentially is how we respond to what's just happened.
Yeah.
And in this one part of what you're talking about, a lot of the time it's judgment. We then judge ourselves for the thoughts we're having. We judge ourselves for how we're feeling. And ironically, we actually add a layer of suffering on top of suffering. And that blocks the first emotion from even passing through. So we're accumulating emotion within us, and then we're becoming angry at ourselves for being angry. We're becoming anxious, so we might feel anxious before a meeting. We're feeling ashamed of feeling ashamed. And it's just compounding and adding. So the first thing we want to begin to do is notice the judgment and begin to release that. Notice the emotion and allow it to flow through. Because emotion on its own will pass. We know from the neuroscientist, Dr. Bolt Taylor, and emotions generally last about 90 seconds, a minute and a half.
Wow. People will be like, no, mine go on for much longer, right?
Completely. There's a series of chemical events which enter the body. Something will happen in the environment. It'll trigger this fight or flight response. It'll gear the body up. And it'll take about 90 seconds for the chemicals to flush through the body.
Wow.
Anytime emotion goes beyond that point, it's because we're re-stimulating through a thought our physiological response.
Got it.
Our mind is holding on to, why did this happen? What will it mean for the future? How could this happen to me? Why did I do that? Why did they do that? They shouldn't do that. He should have known better. She should have treated me with more respect. And we're continually reigniting that pain. So as you grow in awareness, as you begin to see this, as you begin to develop the ability to live more in the present moment, understand your mind, have compassion for it, but not engage with it, you begin to flow through life. And whenever you're flowing through life, it's so much easier because life continually flows. If a river doesn't flow when we create a block, it'll stagnate. If blood in our bloodstream doesn't flow and it stops, it'll coagulate. We need to stay with the rhythm and flow of life in order to have that sense of ease and clarity. And from that space, it's actually easier then, like you were saying, to take action, to make a more effective decision or take a more effective action.
And I think, would you say it's kind of like, it's similar to working out in a gym, right? It's people hear that and think, well, that's so hard. I need to try and work on this 90 seconds, just allowing it, embracing it, understanding it, and it'll pass. But to not allow your mind to wander onto these other thoughts, you know, very quickly people can just be like, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I guess it's kind of like with the gym, you just got to make a decision to consistently work at it.
Yeah.
The more you do in the gym, the stronger you get. And it's similar with your mind, right? The more you commit to being aware, to not judging yourself, to feeling the emotion and then not adding more thoughts to the emotion that are going to prolong the emotion. I think it's just kind of like, make a decision today to just start this journey. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to be perfect and just decide to be more aware, right? And I think something everybody says about personal development is anything, whatever you want to achieve in life, it really does start with more self-awareness, right? The more you can become aware, understand your triggers, your responses and all that stuff, you're going to put yourself in a position to achieve so much more internally and externally, right?
I think the difference between surviving and thriving is that piece of self-awareness. The more that we can be self-aware and self-understand and have self-insight, the more that we actually develop the psychological resilience to be able to cope with whatever life throws us. And not only can we cope with it, but we can use those experiences to grow in compassion and wisdom and understanding and love and any values which we hold dear to us. And so, like you're saying, it's seeing that this is the long game.
Yeah.
There's so much of society which is trying to instill this idea that if you don't achieve it now, that you're failing.
Yeah, you never will. It's that quick win mentality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody wants success yesterday.
Yeah. And it's a different psychological approach to see that you can reach a place where you're experiencing gratitude and appreciation and enjoyment of where you are while still growing.
That's an interesting point. It is, isn't it? It's a lot of people think like ambition and gratitude, they can't coexist.
Absolutely.
How would you help someone? Because the more that, for those of us that are really interested in self-development, the more we go to the sort of when we're trying to find the answers to life and
Yeah.
what makes a fulfilling person, it always comes back to gratitude. Like,
Yeah.
the more you can be grateful, the more that you're going to have a better life.
Mm-hmm.
But then we start to go, but if I get too grateful, I lose ambition. Why would I strive to have any more, right?
Yes.
Why, if I should be happy with everything I've got, why earn more money or why get fitter and healthier?
Mm-hmm.
How would you explain if that's the sort of attitude?
Mm-hmm.
How would you say gratitude can actually be a catalyst
Mm-hmm.
for ambition and work together?
I think it's such a poignant avenue to explore, and it's an area which so many of my clients who I work with who are masters of the universe, who have achieved phenomenal feats within their own industry, who are, you know, on a path of profound impact, struggling or challenged by those ideas.
Yeah.
Part of it, I would say, I'll use an analogy. It's a little bit like, do you like dogs?
I'm more of a cat man.
You're a cat.
Jimmy, you love dogs. Jimmy loves dogs.
All right,
we'll do this
Jimmy
bit for
loves-
Jimmy. You can go on the mic if you want to speak about the dogs, Jimmy.
Well, we can use it for we can actually use an analogy for cats as well.
Oh, we can do
Thankfully,
cats
we
as
can
well.
do cats as
Cool.
well.
I'm thinking my little cat now. Okay, he's involved.
Okay, perfect. So imagine your little cat.
Yeah.
There is a beauty and a perfection of that kitten whenever she's or he's 12 weeks old.
Yeah.
You know, whenever I got a dog, I might got my little dog Alfie. There was a beauty in him whenever we had him when he was 8 weeks old,
Yeah.
and seeing him at that stage.
Yeah.
At no point did I look at him and say, "Do you know what? You're like 40% of a real dog. You're one day you're gonna be a dog,
Yeah.
but right now you're not good enough. Once you really develop into your potential, then you'll be worthy of value and respect and inherent intrinsic value."
Got it.
We don't do that with animals. We don't do it with nature. We don't look at a tree that's growing and saying, "You're like 60% of a tree. You've not reached your potential yet. So you're just not there. I'm not going to appreciate you." We do that with people though. I'm not there yet. I've not grown enough. I'm not at my potential. We have this idea of a potential that we need to be reaching. And until we get there, we're going to be dissatisfied and discontent, and we're going to put ourselves down and we're going to suffer along the way. It's beginning to hold this paradox that you are where you need to be and you are beautiful and have value and intrinsic worth just as you are, and you can continue to grow and evolve and flourish in multiple different ways. But you'll never be better. You'll never be a better or more valuable person in a way. Your worth is your worth. Yes, you might take actions which have a different impact, but in terms of your actual self-worth, you will still hold the same value.
Yeah.
In the same way that a baby is just as valuable as a human, even though the baby isn't contributing to society. We don't look at a baby and say, "What are you doing for society? Where's your impact?"
What a waste of space.
What a waste of space.
Taking all my
All you do is
resources.
cry.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
You don't even sleep that well.
Yeah.
You know, and then you just end up secreting into your nappy the entire time. Like,
Brilliant.
totally. Get rid of the baby,
But
bring me
yeah.
a man.
But people still having them.
Yeah, but people are still having. Because we can see the value is in the individual.
Yeah.
To go back to your point, it's about recognizing the fear. There's often a big fear that if I lose my drive, I'm not going to be able to achieve what it is I want to achieve.
Yeah.
And if I'm content, I'll lose my drive.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's a flawed understanding of psychology, because what we don't see is that our intrinsic nature is to grow and to evolve and to progress. Evolution is all about evolving. That is our inner condition. When we take away what you could call almost like a lower vibrational motive, it's replaced by a higher one. You can do an action that's coming from a place of fear. If you take away that fear, though, you'll be motivated from a place of freedom or altruism or contribution or compassion or love. You can be taking the same actions because why would you not?
Yeah.
Because I have a choice. I can either create something of value which has impact, or I cannot. The way that we're wired will want to move towards that. What holds us back is fear. Some people, though, will use their fear in order to be motivated. and they'll be driven from a place of fear.
Yeah.
And can that achieve success? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You just have to
Yeah.
look at examples and, fascinating in-depth articles or interviews with people like Michael Phelps and what he's achieved in the swimming world.
Yeah.
And within 6 months had a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Because it was all coming from a place of fear and coming from a place of scarcity and of lack. So can you do it from a place of fear? Absolutely. But are you going to be feeling fulfilled, and will it be sustainable? I think that's more dubious.
Yeah.
And for me, every moment is the only moment that exists. So I'd rather do something in a way where there's a sense of joy and fulfillment and appreciation and achievement. Absolutely. Have the goals, have the vision. Let's move towards it. Let's create. Let's have abundance. But let's do that from a place of love and freedom rather than from a place of fear and constriction.
Comes back to awareness again, right?
Completely.
Consistently checking in with yourself. What about, there's a lot of this whole, I think like, I remember maybe 7-8 years ago, first discovering Gary Vaynerchuk online. And obviously, I think he's incredible, but a lot of his messages were misinterpreted. And it was like,
Yeah.
Don't go to sleep. Work 7 days a week if, you want to be successful. Hustle in your 20s every single minute of the day and make sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to achieving at a high level in anything, so whether that be business, finances, sports, things like that, do you think we cannot avoid that there has to be a big level of sacrifice, and whether that be sacrificing sleep, time with loved ones and so on? Do you think that's just something we can't get away from, or is there another way?
From my perspective, there's always going to be a trade-off.
Yeah.
We're always going to have a finite amount of time. And within that, there's a choice of how do I spend my time.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't really buy into the idea of sacrifice, though, in that I'm sacrificing myself for someone else. I see it as choice. We just have a choice. How do I want to spend my time?
Got you.
And whenever we are aware of where we're coming from, I will say we're either coming from a place of fear or we're coming from a place of love. And when I say love, I don't mean romantic love, but I mean this idea of freedom and liberation, where there's a sense of ease and clarity and peace. We're coming from a place of peace and clarity, or we're coming from a place of fear. And whenever we're coming from a place of fear, often we're driven in ways that we might not choose to if the fear wasn't there. And so there's this compulsive, obsessive need. I have to do more. I have to be more productive. I have to achieve this, because if I don't, your mind is saying then you're not worthy, or you're not valuable, or you just won't be good enough.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do more to be more. And the problem with that is it's like a slow suffocation, because anytime we get to the next point, the mind will create a new goalpost, and we've all been there.
Yeah.
We've seen it. We achieve one thing, and the mind doesn't stop and say, "Do you know what, Matt? Bravo, you've done it.
Done.
We're
Yeah,
done.
we're done now. Just
Hang up your
enjoy
boots.
life. Yeah.
Just
But
enjoy
people
it."
think it does, they do place that happiness on a destination kind
Absolutely.
of thing, don't they? I will be able to have more time with my loved ones. I will be able to chill out more when I achieve this. And what we've seen time and time again is it's never enough. And actually, if you're not doing it now, people don't. They keep, as you're saying, going,
Yeah.
well, now I've got the £10 million house. I could have the
Yeah.
£50 million house like I see my friends having now. And there's always another goal.
Completely. And that is often coming, like we're saying, from a place of fear. So when we're aware of where we're coming from, it gives us more choice. When we're coming from a place of freedom, it's then about making the choice of how do I want to spend my time. Now, that might mean that I spend less time on X and Y and more time on Z.
Yeah.
But it's a choice that you'll be making from a place of freedom. And so in a way, you'll be more at ease with your choice. And actually, you can take pleasure in that choice. A lot of people are often focused on the fear of missing out. I now begin to shift my mind to the joy of leaving out.
Yeah.
By not going to that social event and choosing to, I don't know, work on my group program,
Yeah.
I'm valuing what I do, and I'm valuing the contribution that I can make. By choosing not to do work and actually have a relaxed evening with my brother and his girlfriend, I'm choosing to rest, and I'm choosing to connect to my brother. So it's all about making choice and seeing the value in your choice. Is it the case that potentially progress might be slower with more balance? I think realistically that could be the case. Yes, you could spend 12 hours a day and reach a goal within 1 or 2 or 3 years more quickly.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with clients that I've worked with, and they've invested solely in growing and scaling their business, but it's come at a cost.
Yeah.
And actually, because they were driven from a place of fear, they didn't like the cost that it came with.
So it's like the process wasn't fun. So that 3 years, for example,
Completely.
has just been, not a fun process, not enjoyable. But they got the goal. Now they've got to try and work on, now I need to build myself back up or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, would it maybe be better to achieve that external, extrinsic goal 3 years later, but enjoy the process?
Completely. And even Gary Vaynerchuk has even, used that analogy. A lot of people in their 20s are focused on success now. Whereas even in the past, we would look at success that would come with age, that would come with growth. People who were the most successful in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. What if you reach your goal aged 37 as opposed to age 34 or 32? Is that going to make a huge difference to the overall play of events? If the difference is doing it with a sense of fun and playfulness and excitement, or more of those elements and more meaning and purpose, and also having a balance of travel and having new experiences, and also having connection with your friends, because it all comes back to essentially living a fulfilling life, but life only ever plays out in the present moment. So if we sacrifice the present moment for an imagined future, we're on very shaky ground.
Of course. I feel like we've only just started, but I'm aware of the time. I feel like there's so much more. We've just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
But what we have scratched has been really, really valuable. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you for the incredible work that you're doing. The stuff that I've seen you're doing, you're making a difference on such a grand scale. And I know you've got aspirations to keep on moving with that, but still enjoying the present. And not,
Totally.
if you do it a bit later, that's absolutely fine. For people that have just enjoyed this little taster into your world and what you do, how can people find out more? Where can they find you, and what have you got on offer at the moment?
Yeah, people check out the website, dr-aria.com, and that tells you more about me, about the work that I do. I'm developing a group program because right now I work one-to-one with individuals, but I can't work with every client that would like to. And so I'm going to create a very close, intimate group of high-performing individuals where we can explore these principles, where they can learn the psychological skills and mindset approach in order to raise their performance, but also live a more fulfilling life in the moment. So I'm working on that right now. So people on the mailing list will get the first news about that, and then Instagram. I'm sure you can put it in the show notes if anybody wants to. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Before we finish, and just to say, anybody that wants to hear more, Dr. Aria is going to be giving your main tips on how we can live a more high performance life, I think we said, but we may change that. But anyway, if you want to hear more from him, we are going to do a little bonus interview in the members area. Just before we finish, though, the final question I ask all guests is, what is your current definition of success?
To be present, to express my truth fully and deeply, to appreciate the beauty and even the brutality of life, to enrich my life with all the multifacets of art, music, poetry, people, nature, to dissolve my attachment to the ego, and to reach a place where I'm living more and more in a space of calmness and clarity and ease and wisdom and compassion, so that irrespective of what happens around me, there's a part of my core which is indestructible, unshakable, imperturbable, and is able to respond with as much grace and love as I can. It's a bit long.
Did you rehearse that? So you
No, literally
I don't even want to speak it. Well, I can't do anything better. Just thank you.
Okay, so I know that I said at the beginning of this episode that this was undoubtedly one of my favourite episodes that we've ever done. But actually, I've got more. Actually, on this occasion, I actually feel that the conversation we had exclusively for the members only was even more powerful and important than the main episode. Now, that doesn't usually happen. Usually we just go for some simple steps, some simple tips, and added little extra bonus for our members. And usually the most value is in the main episode, but I cannot stress enough that what Dr. Aria shares in our members only episode is not only something that I've found life-changing for myself, but it's something that I've taken on board to now use and utilize when I'm working with my clients. If you want to hear exactly what that is, I'm telling you now, you need to become a Rich in Success member. Dr. Aria has given his main tips on how you can continue to thrive and continue to achieve at a high level, even when you're going through difficult obstacles and adversities in your life. Here is a little preview of that conversation.
To give you quite a personal example, so I've been married for 5 years with my partner for 10, and long story, but one day she let me know that she'd been having an affair with a man from work and she's pregnant with his child. That's not a reality that I wanted or asked for. And in that moment, it felt like I'd lost a lot. That is the reality though, and that reality isn't changing. It's already happened. As much as I want to deny it or negate it, I'm not going to be able to. And the mind will add these layers. Everything you said, I call it like a layer of perception. You've got reality of what happened. In my case, my partner's been unfaithful and pregnant with another man's child. Reality. Layers of perception are, this shouldn't have happened. This is too painful. I'm not going to be able to cope with it.
Yeah.
It must mean I'm not good enough. I must not have what he has. I must be inferior. These are all mental constructions that the mind will add on to, but it actually drives our suffering. We know that whenever fear in the brain goes up, intellect goes down, because the prefrontal cortex is responsible for emotional regulation, decision making, holding multiple pieces of information in mind, weighing up options, and making an objective, rational, reasonable decision or choice. That goes offline, we lose it temporarily when emotions kicked in.
This is where you get that thing in hindsight, why did I respond like that? I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that, that kind of mentality.
Totally, completely. And whenever we're being driven by the older primal part of our brain, we're going to make a fear-based reaction with a fear-based decision. What feelings are arising within me?
Yeah.
What am I noticing in my body?
Yeah.
Am I feeling hurt? Am I feeling angry? Am I feeling ashamed? Whatever it might be. And recognize that that feeling is within you. It's not out there in the world.
Yeah.
A different person with a different mind would be feeling something different.
Yeah.
I think that is so profoundly accurate. In that anything that happens, the mind will personalize it and make it about us. But most of the time, a principle I work from is what anyone else says or does tells you nothing about you. It only tells you about them.
So there you go, guys. Over to you now. If you want to become a Rich in Success member and hear that episode in full, make sure you head on over to richinsuccess.com and click on the membership area to sign up right now, or you can click the link in the bio that is attached to the show notes. I'll look forward to seeing you as you become a member, where not only will you be able to listen to that full conversation, but you will get all the other exclusive members benefits, including live coaching with me every single month, a training program that is pre-recorded that I take you through, and also a community private to the members only, where you can connect with other like-minded individuals who are focused on being the best they can be. Head on over to richinsuccess.com or click the link below to sign up now. And I will look forward to seeing you next week as the journey of self-discovery and personal growth continues. I'll see you there.